Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. Today is Monday, February 9th. This is our daily NBA show that we've been doing with Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com. Pretty successful show overall. We've given a bunch of good advice, and our records so far, Joe Duffy 11-7 against the spread. I'm 11-8 against the spread. We still get thumbs downs, though, on these shows, though, Joe Duffy.
Well, you know, it's the nature of the business. If you're supposed to hit 100% of the time, same thing on my premium plays. In fact, right now I am on a 103-75 run in basketball. But if somebody buys for the first time ever in basketball and I go 2-3, I may get some hate mail. So it's just the nature of the business.
All right. So before we get into this card, once again, just your website is OffshoreInsiders.com, and what do you do there every day?
Pick winners. 3-0 sweep yesterday. The Cavs were a nice major play. Oakland in college basketball, and the Clippers over. Or Wise Guy plays 57.856%, 103-75. We got 4 NBA winners tonight, including a Wise Guy play, Mr. Loshak.
Really? 4 picks on your card tonight. So none of those picks are going to be the picks that you can give in our show, right?
No, the picks at offshoreinsiders.com will not be, it'll be in addition to the free pick I'm going to give you.
All right. There's a bunch of lines I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about an under 193 in Brooklyn, Milwaukee, right? Brooklyn, 4 straight unders. They're 8-17 over-under on the road. Milwaukee has recently been trending over. They're 5-3 over-under over their last 8, but we know that before that they were a huge under-trender. They're also 8-15 over-under at home. The total is, I'd like it to be a little bit higher, but 193.5 seems okay, so I was thinking about an under there. Also thinking about the under 208 in Clippers-Dallas. The Clippers, of course, without Blake Griffin, and they've been absolutely awful on defense past few games. I'm thinking that maybe they'll try to clamp down on defense here, and Dallas has been a strong under-trender recently. I think they've had all unders except for one that went to OT, and the other one that didn't go to OT was against Golden State. So I'm thinking about the under 208 there. What do you think about those 2 picks, Joe?
Yeah, I don't really have a big play on the side either way. on the total either way. I can tell you that I was one of those people that was riding Milwaukee under for the longest time. They were the top under team in the NBA, but I get a little nervous once the odds makers catch up. There can be a little bit of the regression to the mean. But in the case of the other game, I think you said was Dallas under. Yeah, you're right. That obviously Blake Griffin, he's one of the top offensive players in his position. He's the 10th best player in the NBA and the 2nd best power forward, according to Hollinger. And he's certainly a heck of an offensive player. Now, of course, yesterday, the only game that they played without him, they lost against the spread, and it did go over. That was a Wise Guy play for us, but there were some strong parameters that we had that didn't have anything directly to do with Blake Griffin, and they do not apply tonight. The general rule of thumb is a lot of people think when a team is tired legs, they're going to slow the pace down a little bit, and that would benefit the under. We've looked that up mathematically. That's not true, although it does not go in the opposite direction. Every now and then, counterintuitive stuff works, but the Clippers are playing back-to-back and 3 games in 4 days. So, yeah, you're right with this. When one team is without their offensive cog, and especially, usually the first game without them, they do get a little bit of a boost, but now that it's the second game without him, I would probably lean towards the under there.
All right, and then I'm not sure what I'm going to make as my official picks. Then there's 3 other sides that look interesting. The first one, Indiana. What are the reasons here? Both are off of back-to-backs, and Indiana now getting healthy, and the Spurs are not doing well. They're 1-6-1 against the spread over their last 8. So now it's 4.5 or 5, and it was a solid 5 on the overnights. Also Orlando. Washington's a 9-point favorite. I know Orlando's on a back-to-back, and Washington is rested, and they're coming off a big win. But before that, they were off of a long string of ATS losses, and now they're a 9-point favorite against a team with a new coach. And then the other one I was thinking about was maybe Minnesota. Going against Atlanta is not something I really feel comfortable doing in any situation. But Minnesota 6-3 against spread over their last 9. Atlanta 3-8 against spread over their last 8. And Minnesota, with Rubio back, maybe they're getting a little boost. They did recently beat Memphis at home straight up, which is an impressive win there. What do you think about any of those 3 opinions?
Well, what you did mention was a couple plays where, remember, our regression of the mean definitely applies there. You mentioned a couple home dogs. Home dogs since January 22nd are now 32-13. Remember, the road favorites got off to the good start, but we knew that was kind of an aberration because road favorites are public plays, and if road favorites are going to constantly cover, the odds makers are going to get crushed. So the home underdog has been the play as of late, and that would apply to a couple of the games that you mentioned. And certainly in the case of the Hawks, they're coming off a very tough game last night at Memphis. And then remember, they played Friday night against Golden State, and which was probably one of the biggest home games in recent history in Atlanta. So a good letdown spot for sure. As we've said in the past several years, one of the things that we've handicapped more than we did in previous years, and to great benefit, is the letdown situation. So the Hawks are vulnerable to a letdown. But as we said, still with a team that they're not used to being among the elite, that's why I think the Hawks are a little bit less vulnerable to a letdown than most teams are. But if I had to make a play, I would go with Minnesota there.
All right, I still have to decide what I'm going to make for my free picks here. First, let's hear what you have for us today, Joe Duffy.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with the 76ers. That also would apply to what we said about the home dogs playing pretty well lately. We're not big into ATS trends per se, but sometimes when you have statistically overwhelming stuff and it's corroborating, the Warriors are 3-21 as a favorite with at most 1 day rest after a win in which they're off of a game in which they scored at least 10 points more in the first quarter than they did in the fourth quarter. Now, again, I know that's kind of long-winded, but it says essentially that a team maybe showed some signs of tiring in their past game, and then they're a favorite here. Also quite interesting, home underdogs of 12 or more are 66-40, which is 62.3%. And just as a general rule of thumb, when you have a large point spread, it is good to go with the home team. So if you have a huge home favorite or a huge home underdog, whatever the case is, the home teams do well there. And maybe the most impressive of them all is home underdogs of 10.5 or more with a winning percentage that is 55, and that would be like 0.550 points or more than their opponent. Going with the home underdog is 57-29. That is, if they are clearly an inferior team, basically. Big home underdogs, when according to the winnage percentage, are clearly an inferior team where their winning percentage is actually 550 or less than their opponent is.
So right now, Philly is plus 15.5 or 16 market wide. So we can give you a Philly plus 16 for your free pick. All right, I don't know. You know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to pass on all of my leans except for Indiana. I think I'm going to go with Indiana at home plus 5 against the Spurs. Indiana, again, getting healthier. Spurs won 6-1 against the spread over their last 8. I hate going against the Spurs, but, what the hell. I think I'm going to do it this time. Indiana plus 5. And I guess on all the others, I will pass. That Clippers-Dallas game, even if the Clippers do clamp down on D and start playing, a lot lower scoring, you could still just barely go over 208, get to 211 or something like that. Milwaukee's been trending over recently, so I guess I'll pass on that one. And the Minnesota-Atlanta game, I guess I'm just too afraid to go against Atlanta, even though Minnesota getting a healthy amount of points at home with Rubio back, both on a back-to-back, is kind of enticing. And, that win against Memphis, again, was pretty impressive. But what's your take on Minnesota?
Before I get to Minnesota, let me just say this. I did have Indiana as a premium play lean. It is not a premium play, but since you like Indiana, let's add a second play. I will also go with the Pacers. But yeah, like I said, on Minnesota, I would tend to agree with you because both San Antonio and Atlanta were big public bets, which means, as a general rule of thumb, contrarian bets are good when the public is overwhelmingly on one side. We like to go with the other side, but that's low on our list of parameters. It's more corroborating data than anything else. But, as I said, in both cases, I do expect that home underdogs are going to continue to be covering at a good rate. Keep in mind for the Hawks, Jeff Teague, he is listed as questionable, although the Hawks are surprising 3-0 against the spread minus him. But he is the fourth most effective point guard in the NBA, according to Hollinger. And especially, as I said, this is the third game in 4 days for the Hawks, but a clear-cut letdown game after playing two of the better teams in the NBA. Like they played their biggest home game maybe in years on Friday night, and then they played a very tough road game yesterday. So it's not just 3 games in 4 days, but it's a very tough spot.
All right, well, I'm going to pass on that one. I'm just going to take Indiana plus 5, and Joe Duffy's going to take Philly plus 16, and you're also going to add Indy plus 5 because of my analysis?
Yeah, well, no, as I said, Indiana I had as a strong lean for a premium play, but it didn't quite rise to the level of that. And truthfully, I had Minnesota as a lean towards a premium play as well. So we're really seeing eye to eye on most of these plays.
Okay, well, I'm flattered, Joe Duffy. I'm on Indiana plus 5, Duffy on Indiana plus 5, and Philly plus 16. Thanks so much, Joe, and talk to you again tomorrow.